Emma Pierce was wiping the last bit of dust off the coffee table when she realized how quiet the house had become. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that reminded her how different life felt these days, how the warm, easy laughter between her and her husband, Daniel, had slowly turned into tired nods and quick dinners. She didn't blame him or herself. 7 years of marriage carried a weight they hadn't expected. Work drained them. Routine numbed them. They were still in love, but the spark that used to make everything glow seemed to have slipped into the background. So when Emma got a text earlier that week, "We're finally back in town. We'd love to see you too," she felt something stir inside her. It was from Olivia, one of her closest friends from years ago. She and her husband Mark had moved to Denver for work, and the distance had slowly replaced their friendship with occasional birthday messages and holiday hellos. But now they were back in Portland. And suddenly, the idea of reconnecting excited Emma more than she wanted to admit. She had suggested the dinner casually, pretending it was simply a friendly reunion. But deep down, she hoped it might also bring something new into her own life, some color, some energy, something that made her feel awake again. Daniel had agreed without hesitation. He liked Mark, respected him, trusted him, and he knew how much Emma missed having close friends nearby. By the time the doorbell rang, Emma's nerves were buzzing. She smoothed her blouse, checked her hair in the hallway mirror, and opened the door with a warm smile. Olivia stepped forward first, arms open, pulling Emma into a hug that felt like sunshine after a long winter. She smelled of jasmine and confidence. Beside her, Mark shook Daniel's hand, both men laughing in that familiar, easy-breathing way old friends do. Inside, everything felt instantly brighter. The living room filled with conversation, quick, lively, warm. They talked about their old neighborhood, about new jobs, about how Portland had changed while they were gone. Daniel made a joke about how the traffic was still terrible, and everyone laughed, maybe louder than the comment deserved. But that was the thing about reunions. People didn't laugh at jokes. They laughed at the feeling of being together again. Dinner came and went in a blur of clinking glasses, good food, and stories. Emma noticed how icily the room came alive with Olivia around. She always had that effect. She spoke with energy, told stories with her whole face, made people lean in without even trying. When she talked, Mark watched her like he still couldn't believe he had married her. And when she laughed, Daniel smiled with genuine warmth, the kind Emma hadn't seen him use in weeks. For a while, the evening felt perfect. Everything flowed naturally. But moments, small and subtle, began to change the rhythm of the night. It started when Olivia touched Daniel's arm lightly while telling a funny story about a disastrous road trip. It wasn't a romantic touch, it was just how Olivia talked, full of expression. But something about it felt noticeable. Emma felt her heartbeat shift, confused but not upset. She wasn't jealous. It was something else, a sense that the carefully balanced energy between the four of them had tilted. Just slightly. Then Mark asked Emma a question about her new design project. And the seriousness in his eyes surprised her. He wasn't just asking out of politeness. He was genuinely interested. His expression was steady, thoughtful, the kind of quiet attention she wasn't used to receiving anymore. It made her straighten up a little, made her want to answer more carefully than she expected, as the night grew later. The conversation moved to the living room, the kind of slow transition that happens when nobody wants the evening to end. The candles on the table were still burning, giving the room a soft gold glow. Rain tapped the windows in a steady rhythm, making the inside feel warmer. Almost hidden from the world, Emma curled into the corner of the couch next to Daniel. She could feel his warmth beside her, but also a strange distance, as if he were here physically, but drifting somewhere in thought. Across from them, Olivia and Mark shared the small love seat, sitting close enough that their shoulders brushed. But their eyes kept moving, not just toward their own spouses, but toward each other's partner too. Not in a romantic or inappropriate way. More like curiosity mixed with nostalgia, the feeling of wanting to understand a person you used to know well. Emma noticed every glance, every shift in tone. And the surprising part was that she didn't feel threatened. Instead, she felt strangely alert, almost awakened. She hadn't felt this aware of her own emotions or of Daniel since the early years of their marriage. At one point, Olivia leaned back and sighed softly. "Do you two ever feel like life has been moving faster than you can keep up?" she asked, her voice low, almost sad. Emma felt something tighten in her chest. "Every day," she admitted before she could stop herself. "Sometimes it feels like the world changed while we weren't looking." Brooke nodded. "Yeah. You wake up one morning and realize you've become a different person without meaning to." Daniel sat quietly, listening. He wasn't usually one to open up easily, but Emma felt him shift beside her, as if he weren't sure whether to agree or keep everything inside. Small confessions like these created a fragile, emotional current between them. Nothing inappropriate, nothing crossing lines. But something honest, maybe too honest for a simple dinner gathering. Emma suddenly understood why people said emotions were dangerous. Not because they caused chaos, but because they revealed truths people didn't expect to face. The night should have ended there. But at DIDN single quotes TAs, Mark leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees. "It's still early," he said with a smile that was a little too careful. "What if we stayed a bit longer?" Olivia looked at Emma, not at Daniel, and her expression wasn't playful anymore. It held a quiet question, a curiosity, maybe even concern. Emma felt her breath catch. Not because of anything inappropriate, just the intensity of the moment. It was as if the four of them were standing at the edge of something emotional and unspoken, something that could either bring clarity or confusion. Daniel turned to her, waiting for her answer. He didn't say anything, but she could feel the tension in him. She could see the unspoken fear in his eyes. Like he knew this night was stirring feelings neither of them had planned for. Emma forced a smile, trying to steady herself. "Yeah," she said softly. "Stay a little longer." But the second she said it, she realized she had no idea what longer would mean for any of them, because the room didn't just feel warm anymore. It felt charged, like something old was waking up, or something new was trying to begin. The details weren't dramatic. There were no wrong actions or risky choices. But emotions had their own way of spiraling when people opened doors they didn't realize were there. And as the night continued, Emma kept wondering if she had invited more than just old friends into her home. Maybe she had invited a part of herself she had forgotten, something searching, longing, hoping. She didn't know yet if that was good or bad. She only knew the night had slipped into territory none of them expected. And the truth was, once emotions started shifting, it was impossible to pretend they hadn't. The air felt too full. The looks felt too deep. And the silence between every laugh seemed to say, something is changing. And none of them could stop it now. The rain outside had grown steadier, tapping against the windows with a rhythmic persistence. Inside, the living room was warm with candlelight, the soft golden glow reflecting off the polished wooden floor. Emma sat closer to Daniel on the couch now, her hand brushing against his. She could feel his presence in a way she hadn't felt in months, steady, familiar, but somehow new. Across the room, Mark and Olivia had moved slightly on the love seat, leaning back but still alert, as if waiting to see what would happen next. The air felt thick with something unspoken, a subtle tension that was both exciting and unsettling. No one spoke for a moment. Instead, the four of them just sat, letting the quiet fill the space between them. It wasn't awkward. It was charged, like the calm before a storm of emotions. Emma found herself studying Daniel's profile, noticing the small details, the line of his jaw, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the subtle tension in his shoulders. She realized that she had missed this. The way being close could make the world outside disappear. Olivia broke the silence first, her voice soft and reflective. "Do you ever feel like life moves too fast?" she asked, her eyes meeting Emma's for a moment before flicking toward Daniel. Emma nodded without thinking. "All the time," she said. "It's like you wake up one day and realize you're somewhere you didn't plan to be." Mark leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Exactly. And it's not like it's bad. Just different. You start forgetting the small things that used to matter. Daniel said nothing immediately. He watched Emma, his expression unreadable, and Emma felt a twinge of nervous excitement. He had been so quiet lately, so measured, that any sign of openness felt intense. She reached for his hand, and when he took it, there was no hesitation, only the warmth of familiarity. That simple touch made her chest tighten, a reminder of the love they had built together over years. The love that had never disappeared, but had been buried under routines and responsibilities. Mark and Olivia seemed to sense the shift. They didn't comment, but the energy in the room subtly changed. Their eyes weren't just watching their partners, they were noticing the dynamics between Emma and Daniel. As if acknowledging the deep, unspoken connection that had existed for years. It wasn't jealousy or flirtation, it was awareness. A recognition of how fragile and powerful emotions could be. Olivia leaned slightly toward Emma. Sometimes. I wonder if we all lose pieces of ourselves when life gets too busy, she said quietly. Emma's mind raced as she realized how true that felt. The rush of work, the endless responsibilities, the quiet nights alone had all chipped away at the intimacy she and Daniel once shared. Yet here, in this moment, she felt like she was rediscovering something she had almost forgotten. She looked at Daniel, whose eyes met hers with a depth that made her heart ache in the best way. The conversation turned to memories. Small stories from college, from the early days of marriage. From the silly moments that had seemed so insignificant at the time but now carried meaning. They laughed, sometimes quietly, sometimes openly. And each laugh seemed to chip away at the tension that had built over the years. Emma realized that laughter had the power to connect them, not just to their past, but to each other in the present. It reminded her that love didn't have to be loud or dramatic to be real. Daniel spoke then, finally breaking his silence. I think we forget how much time we have together, he said, his voice steady but gentle. We get caught up in everything else and forget to really notice the people we love. His words hit Emma like a wave. She squeezed his hand, feeling both relief and longing. Relief that he still cared, that he still noticed her. And longing for the connection they had once taken for granted. Mark added his own reflection, softer this time. It's easy to forget that life isn't just about work or responsibilities. It's about moments like this, when you actually see each other. His gaze fell on Olivia briefly, not in a romantic way, but in a way that acknowledged their shared life and the importance of presence. Olivia smiled faintly, her fingers brushing against the edge of the couch almost involuntarily, as if the shared understanding was enough. Emma felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the intensity of everything she was feeling. Years of suppressed emotion, quiet longing, and daily routines had built up, and now, surrounded by the people she cared about most, those feelings had space to breathe. She leaned into Daniel, resting her head on his shoulder, and felt him shift slightly to accommodate her. It was a gesture so small, yet it carried the weight of unspoken words. Love, regret, hope, and commitment all at once. For a few moments, the room was silent again. Rain tapped against the windows, the only sound besides the soft flicker of the candles. Emma realized that silence didn't have to be empty. Sometimes, silence was understanding. It was the comfort of knowing that the people around you could feel the same things without saying them aloud. Olivia broke the silence again, this time with a soft laugh. I didn't mean for tonight to feel so complicated, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma shook her head, understanding immediately. You didn't. We made it complicated ourselves, she said, surprising herself with her honesty. It was true. Nothing had happened that shouldn't have. Yet the emotional intensity was undeniable. It wasn't a scandal or a mistake. It was life, raw and unfiltered, showing them the parts of themselves they had hidden away. Mark and Daniel exchanged a look, and Emma felt the warmth of solidarity in the room. No one judged anyone else. No one acted out of fear or jealousy. They simply acknowledged the complexity of being human, of being in love, of being friends who had grown and changed but still shared a deep, unbreakable connection. As the evening continued, Emma noticed a subtle shift in Daniel's expression. He was usually cautious with words and gestures, but now there was a softness in his gaze, a willingness to be vulnerable. Emma's own heart responded instinctively. She realized that the spark she had feared was returning, not in a reckless or dangerous way, but in a quiet, profound way that reminded her of why she had fallen in love with him in the first place. The four of them began sharing more memories, more confessions, and more quiet observations. There were small jokes, gentle teasing, and heartfelt admissions. Emma realized that the night wasn't about escaping reality or creating drama, was about reconnecting, about facing emotions honestly, about recognizing that love and friendship were living things that required attention. Mark finally stretched, yawning quietly. "I think we should call it a night soon," he said. But even as he spoke, the tension hadn't left entirely. It lingered, not as a threat, but as a reminder of how much they had been missing in their lives. The awareness of each other, the depth of emotion, the power of being truly present. Olivia smiled, standing and brushing off her clothes. She gave Emma a warm hug, longer than expected, and whispered, "I'm glad we did this." Emma hugged her back, feeling the honesty of the words sink in. "Me too," she said, meaning every syllable. Daniel stood beside her, taking her hand as they walked toward the door to see Mark and Olivia off. He kissed the top of her head gently. "Tonight reminded me of a lot of things," he said quietly. Emma tilted her head up, meeting his gaze. "Me too," she replied, her voice steady but full of feeling. Outside, the rain had eased to a soft drizzle. Mark and Olivia waved as they walked to their car, their expressions calm, content, and slightly reflective. Emma and Daniel watched them go, then turned back to the house, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The night had been emotional, intense, and revealing, but it had also been healing. Once inside, Emma leaned against Daniel, feeling the warmth of his body and the steadiness of his presence. "I didn't expect tonight to be like this," she whispered almost to herself. Daniel kissed her forehead, holding her close. "Maybe it needed to be," he said. And she knew he was right. The evening had taken them through laughter, reflection, longing, and quiet revelations. It had reminded them of the strength of their connection and the importance of paying attention to one another. The night had gotten out of control, not because of anything scandalous or reckless, but because emotions were alive, powerful, and unavoidable. It had stirred something deep inside all four of them, a reminder that life and love were never simple, but they were always worth the effort. Emma and Daniel finally moved to the couch. Sitting together in a comfortable silence, they didn't need to speak. The night had said everything for them. They had faced themselves, each other, and their friends, and they had come through closer, more aware, more connected. And as the candlelight flickered and the rain continued its soft rhythm outside, Emma realized that the evening had been exactly what they needed. Not perfect, not simple, but real, honest, and full of heart. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. They didn't need to. For now they had this moment, intense, emotional, and deeply human, and it was enough.